Corruption, impunity, and lack of accountability are responsible for Nigeria's underdevelopment. As citizens, we have a duty to report wrongdoings that endanger the well-being of the society. See something, say something. Blow the whistle today. Report corruption and other wrongdoings confidently and anonymously. Send tips to AfricMail on tips@corruptionanonymous.org or call 0811 877 1666 or the Presidential Initiative on Continuous Audit (PICA) on 0909 806 7946. Tips can also be submitted to the following anti-corruption agencies: EFCC, ICPC, Code of Conduct Bureau, or the Nigeria Police. This message is from the African Center for Media and Information Literacy, AfricMail, with support of MacArthur Foundation.
Hi, I'm Adeshewa Josh, and I'll be leading this course on how to package like a pro. It's about writing and producing news packages for international broadcast news media, a skill in high demand worldwide in the journalism profession. Unfortunately, it's hard to find good training, and that's why I produced this course to provide you with tips and tricks to help you get started or to perfect what you already know. In this course, you'll learn how to put together a news story and to become the go-to source for packages on the stories happening around you. Package Like a Pro will help you turn your news gathering hobby into a money-making gig.
Sorry, Mr. Senator, I want to... Please. Is there any money left here? I didn't come here for... So how much money did you need in it because you were making withdrawals? Can you explain how you came to that Rolls Royce that you have in your house? I stole it from you. No, I don't. So can you, sir, how do you have all those cars when you were an actor? How do you have all those cars as an actor? I'm not ready to speak to you. I said I'm not ready to speak to you. How do you have all those assets? Respect, man. I said I'm not ready to speak to you. You're a public official, yet you have all these assets. Can you explain that? I stole it from your dad. Can you explain that to us how you have all those assets, sir? Sir, how much was the tattoo you had removed? Sir, what's the difference between accompanying the Sarakees and Stella Oduah? And you're challenging of Stella Oduah's legitimacy as a leader. You should be civil, okay? Yeah.
What happened to the promises you gave to Kenyans? The laptops, the stadiums, employment? What happened? Come on. Wait.
Tulikuwa tumeshinda kura vizuri. Na uliona. Tukifikiria tu kuanza kujenga ma stadium. Kununua tu ma laptop. Na kupea vijana majob poa. Kabu. Mganga wa vitenda. Okay.
Here are some stories making headline news across African newspapers today, Sunday, July 31st, 2022. Kenya threatens to suspend Facebook over hate speech. In Nigeria, the federal government threatens to punish the BBC over its documentary on bandits in northern Nigeria. In South Africa, Julius Malema warns of an impending uprising. Looking at French-speaking parts of Africa, political analysts have noticed that Mali and Burkina Faso coups did not reduce violence in those countries. And from Nigeria, one of the presidential candidates for next year's presidential election, Omoyele Sowore, has warned Nigerians that President Muhammadu Buhari is preparing Nigeria for a coup d'etat. Days after Kenya's presidential debate, attended by only one of the leading presidential candidates, Deputy President William Ruto. Kenya's media is still busy fact-checking the candidate. His main opponent in the August 9th election, Raila Odinga, chose not to participate. I am Rudolph Okonkwo. My co-host, Chido Onoma, is on assignment. It is 11:30 a.m. in New York City. It is 4:30 p.m. in Nigeria. Wherever in the world you are joining us, welcome to another episode of 90 Minutes Africa. On our show today is Declan Galvin, a Kenyan-based political risk and national security expert. Declan was a former editor of SaharaReporters. He will weigh in on the Kenyan election in 9 days. As someone very familiar with Nigeria and the actors on the Nigerian political scene, he will also dissect the Nigerian general election coming up in 2023 and answer your questions about the media in Nigeria and Africa. Declan, welcome to the show.
Sorry, Mr. Senator, I want to... Please. Is there any money left here? I didn't come here for... So how much money did you need when you were making withdrawals?
Can you explain how you came to that Rolls Royce that you have in your house? I
stole it from you.
No, I don't. So can you, sir, how do you have all those cars when you were an actor?
To speak to you.
How do you have all those cars as an actor?
I'm not ready to speak to you. I said I'm not ready to speak to you.
How do you have all those assets?
Respect, man. I said I'm not ready to speak to you.
You're a public official, yet you have all these assets. Can you explain that?
I stole it from your dad.
Can you explain that to us how you have all those assets, sir? Sir, how much was the tattoo you had removed? Sir,
I know.
Those are politics, man.
What's the difference between accompanying the Sarakis and Stella Oduah? You're challenging of Stella Oduah's legitimacy as a leader.
You should be civil, okay?
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to the show, Declan. Welcome.
Hi, Rudolph.
How are you doing?
Good. Sorry for being late. We've had some internet outages.
Yes, most people wouldn't know. We are panicking. We can't find Declan. Where is he? I was going to have a show with myself, just sit here and talk about Kenya and Nigeria. Nice to have you. Where do we start? So what happened? You had no light in Kenya? When did that start?
No, it was internet and there was power, actually.
Okay.
It's been raining here.
Okay. All right. So how's the atmosphere in Kenya today? Are they ready for the election, Kenyans?
Yeah, I think overall people are fairly ready. It's definitely beginning to wind down. So we're less than 10 days. Some people have said that they're concerned. It's been eerily quiet. It has been fairly calm. So I think some people are waiting for something terrible to happen, just to kind of cut the tension. But overall, things look pretty okay.
All right. So I saw the headline in the Nation today where Uhuru said, I was talking to at the opening of the Nairobi Express or something, and he said, "I'm not here to hurt you." He was talking to his deputy. What is that about?
So one of the things that has been really kind of tense, or at least people have been wondering about, is kind of the safety of all these candidates. Kenya has had a history of really pronounced political officials kind of dying or being severely injured. That includes in 2001, who became President Moi Kibaki, was involved in a horrible kind of both aviation and vehicle accidents. So I think that's part of where that's coming from. There's probably allegations that Ruto, because of the tense environment, that he might be under some kind of threat. And I think that was probably just what Kenyatta was saying.
Okay. Now, we know that there was a presidential debate and only William Ruto showed up. What was the reason why Odinga didn't show up?
So according to Raila Odinga, who was supposed to be on the stage, as well as his political party, they said that somebody like Ruto doesn't have any kind of morals, and so they wouldn't share the stage with him. But in reality, I think that Odinga and the Azamil coalition were worried about either Odinga's performance or perhaps maybe Ruto's preparation and kind of capability to kind of both think on his feet and to potentially debate fairly well.
So the point is that he felt that he will not lose any. People taking it okay, because I saw this video. Let me share this video with you and the viewers, and let's see what you think about it. It's tagged the reason why Raila did not participate in the election. Maybe you can help us. That's his explanation for why he did not participate in the debate.
Yeah. So look, I think I don't recall if Odinga has actually debated other people on the stage. I know, for example, in 2017 there were supposed to be debates between him and Kenyatta did not show up. And so I don't recall if Odinga's ever debated before, but I think there was a decision by the campaign that they would be better taking flack for not showing than having a lackluster performance if they chose to show.
That's another for African election observers. That's not a good thing, because other countries like Nigeria, you may have candidates that will basically learn from that and follow that pattern too and not show up. I mean, it's been happening in Nigeria too.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of, I mean, so I think democratic observers do not like that. Actual election observers, I'm not sure that they're even going to kind of reference that, right? So they're going to, most of the details of their report will be the conduct of the election, and then kind of the management of results and whatnot. So that won't even come into it. And, while Kenya has faithfully put on presidential debates every election cycle since 2013, what we have not seen is people respecting and actually showing up. And as you pointed out, in Nigeria, there's a similar kind of level of concern or activity, and then people not showing up or taking it seriously either. So there's definitely, there's definitely a lot of precedent to not take it seriously, unfortunately.
Now let me ask you, why is it that it was only Odinga and Ruto that were invited? The other candidates, what happened?
So there were two tiers to the presidential debates, what they call tier 1 and tier 2. So in order to make it to the tier 1 debate, the most credible kind of 3 national surveys need to indicate that you have received 5% of support or more. And then you can qualify to join that debate, tier 1 that is. For anybody who who's a bona fide presidential candidate but hasn't received the 5%, you're then allowed to debate on the tier 2 stage. And so that can range from 2 people up to however many there would be. So there was a tier 2 debate this time, but one of the key candidates, this being George Wajakoya of the Roots Party, decided he didn't want to debate in tier 2. He says he deserved to be in tier 1, and so he didn't show up either.
So but I saw that the vice presidential deputy, they call it deputy in Kenya, deputy presidents, they had their debate for the main political parties.
Yeah, they did, and it was quite, I think, interesting. So Raila's deputy Martha Karua, debated Ruto's deputy Rigathi Gachagua, and apparently the moral questions and uncertainty around Gachagua and Kenya Kwanza wasn't enough to stop Azamil from sending their deputy candidate to that debate.
How did they perform?
So, look, I think so. Gachagua outperformed expectations, and I think a lot of people kind of saw him as a bit of a bumpkin from upcountry, and people have joked. They said that he acts like a matatu tout, but he performed fairly well and was very he was very well planned and very tactical. And what I mean by that is he had 3 key points, and anytime the question was there, he would turn back and drive it to those 3 key points. One of which did not go unnoticed, is criticizing Kenyatta and Kenyatta's wealth and kind of whatever people felt like would be unsuccessful about Kenyatta's presidency. And so he would often redirect quite a bit to Kenyatta, but it came off as really well played, even if people didn't like it because he didn't directly answer the questions. Martha Karua, on the other hand, she is as has been widely said, a highly credible public official, held serious jobs, very technocratic. She came off fine, but I think some people kind of expected a little more out of her, given her pedigree. But I think overall, I think she performed fairly well.
Now, you mentioned George Wajakoya. People expected, I mean, he's an exciting candidate. Why didn't he debate? I mean, apart from the fact that I thought that debating would give him a wider audience, wider viewers to see his and hear from him. What was the thinking behind that?
So that's a bit unclear. He just really said he was going to debate, but he was going to be in the tier 1. He wanted to debate on the stage with Ruto and Odinga, and anything less than that, he wasn't going to participate in it. I think given the dynamics of his campaign, I don't think he would be unafraid to kind of stand up and try to push his agenda. I do think his campaign is fairly kind of monotone, and so on more sophisticated questions around kind of governance and water and things like that, he probably wouldn't perform as well in those answers, because he's got like 2 issues that he's advancing. But yeah, I don't know other than that why he wouldn't do it, because he would have had close to 90 minutes of free airtime.
Okay, now so the polls, what are they saying? Is there any credible poll showing who is leading, and is it still neck and neck?
It's really close. So the difference between Ruto and Odinga is within the margin of error. Now, for over the past month, for the first time in over 12 months, Odinga has, according to the polls, kind of pulled ahead of Ruto, that is. But it's still very close. And Ruto is performing in areas that are really significant, particularly central Kenya and Rift Valley. One of the concerns that I have with the polls that have kind of been issued, not necessarily the most credible, but some of the kind of lesser credible that gets talked about, is Odinga's voter support out of the Central Rift feels a bit overstated. I don't think that Odinga is going to perform well in Central Rift. And so I think that some of those votes that those polls suggest are going to Odinga, which might be why his performance is higher than Ruto. I think those votes are really kind of Ruto's votes, and he'll get those in the end.
Now, what about the poor people? Who are they supporting? Like the people in the slums? Last time I was there, that was between Uhuru and Odinga. They were leaning towards Odinga. What's today's statistics or supports?
So I think in a lot of the kind of slum communities, there's some division, but really I think the story with that is the dramatic reversal, or at least the dramatic transfer of support from Odinga, who could always rely on support from peri-urban communities, and how much that has shifted toward Ruto. Now, it doesn't mean that Ruto is going to kind of run the board with all those areas. I think that there's a lot of nostalgia that will carry over for Odinga. But the dramatic reversal, at least in terms of national survey data, I think is something that could hurt Odinga in the general election.
Some people said that there's something that changed. There's a picture, I don't have it here to show our viewers, where in that picture, all the people that have been presidents of Kenya were in one particular picture. You have Jomo, you have Moi, you have Kibaki, you have Uhuru. This is the first time that someone outside that picture will be the president of Kenya. Is there a sense that the dynasty is ending?
That's going to depend on who you talk to, right? So if you're a supporter of Ruto, then part of your political aspiration is probably more in line with a shift away from these kind of family dynasties and into, I guess, kind of a political architecture that is, more supportive of you as an individual voter. But to be sure, if we look at like Odinga, as the son of Oginda Odinga, who was one of the kind of shapers of the nation in the 50s and 60s, that reality is also what kind of Ruto and Kenya Kwanza are saying. That's part of this dynasty that they're trying to kind of supplant.
Mm. Now, the other question is that of violence. I mean, we remember what happened in the past election, 2007, I believe. And people were really thinking that with none of the candidates, leading candidates being Kikuyu, that there might not be that repeat. Now, Kikuyus are the most populous ethnic group in Kenya. How is that playing out?
So this is the big question that everybody keeps asking, and I guess in general the response is that things are kind of moving along positively. We don't see the levels of pre-election violence or hate speech that we have either in the past or that we forecasted. And while it's true that we do not have a Kikuyu who will be president, we have had a Kalenjin as president before, with Kikuyu running mates. And if we look at both Ruto and Odinga, these are both two tickets with Kikuyus on them. So it's not a completely unheard of dynamic in terms of kind of ethnic composition. But overall, kind of the trends toward violence look positive. There will certainly be violence after the election, but the indicators aren't suggesting at the moment that will be widespread or shaping the outcome of the poll.
Now, what are the issues that are driving this election? Is it economy? What is the main issue in Kenya?
So I think that the big issue, if we look at the campaign kind of overall, has been the question of whether you as an individual voter or you or your community or family have an adequate access to state resources and opportunities in order to kind of advance your life. I think that's the theme overall for the election. However, certainly microeconomic issues have taken place as the primary dynamic over the past, let's say, 2 months, but really the last month. So inflation is really difficult. The cost of living is high. A lot of concern around the price of petrol, and that is impacting everyday people. The cost of milk is another example. So much so that Kenyatta also basically halved the price of unga, which is the maize meal. He halved the price of that, so it's now about 100 shillings a bag, which it hasn't been that low for a long time. In order to kind of placate and bolster support, or at least prevent people from making that the issue that might tank Odinga's candidacy.
Okay, just to let people know that in about half an hour, we're going to let people join us and they can ask you questions already. I'm seeing some questions. One of them is from Stephen One. He was saying, does China have a favorite in the race? how much debt, how much is Kenya owing China, and is China interested in who wins?
Yeah, so I don't know the exact figure that Kenya is indebted to China, but it is significant. And of course, there are significant infrastructure projects. You mentioned the expressway earlier. That was basically designed and will be managed by China. The standard gauge railway is another one, which has received quite a bit of attention. So I think that China does. I think that China has a very long view of African politics, and so they are kind of equipped to be able to work with anybody, whether that's an Odinga or a Ruto. But Ruto, I think, is much clearer in terms of being transactional and wanting to kind of make deals. And I think that is going to be more conducive to Chinese interests kind of over the medium term. And if you look at some of the big issues regarding kind of China's approach to Africa, and I'll mention so like telecommunications and the rollout of 5G, which is of enormous significance in terms of global strategy. There has been a clear push by the Kenyatta administration to advance Safaricom in terms of getting more access into Ethiopia, some of these other areas. And so there's been an advocate for telecoms from Kenyatta. And depending on the level of tension and disagreement between Kenyatta and Ruto, Ruto might want to approach telecoms and telecommunications in a different way. And that could be potentially, but we don't know, that could potentially be an opportunity for China to advance Huawei and 5G technologies. That would be where I would kind of look at, but admittedly, it's complicated.
Now, I was looking at the headlines in the newspapers in Kenya. One of them was Kenya threatens Facebook suspension over hate speech. And of course, in Nigeria, we have the federal government threatening BBC over a documentary on Zamfara bandits. So what are the media and the coverage of this election in Kenya? How does that look at this moment?
So, another good question. Overall, we have not seen an enormous, particularly if we start looking at international media, we haven't seen an enormous tension or frustration from Kenya or Kenyans or the government with international media like BBC, Reuters, New York Times, etc. And again, that's like, I don't want to say that that's new, but when stakes are as high as they are, historically in Kenya, things have been a bit fraught, and that's not what we're seeing. So I haven't heard any reports that press credentials are being denied. I haven't heard any harassment or intimidation of foreign election monitors. And so it looks kind of good. That's where some people are saying it's almost too quiet, and that makes me uneasy. So that's quite. I think that's a good question, and it's an important kind of window into what's going on with regard to this situation with Facebook. Look, I think it's fair to say that Facebook has an enormous amount of pressure on it because of how its platform has been used and abused across really kind of important inflection points globally, whether that's Brexit, whether that's various elections in the United States, definitely Africa, right? We've seen some activity out of Ethiopia and Madagascar and things like that. And so essentially there are rules that the NCIC and other government officials have put in terms of what's acceptable conduct. And I'm not sure exactly where kind of the threat came from against Facebook, that if they don't comply with regulations, that they risk of being shut down. So I know NCIC was kind of the vessel for a lot of that and some justification. And mind you, I think that the expectations from the NCIC and the Kenyan government, as far as I know, have been, according to my assessment, quite fair and acceptable, just given the level of concern on how social media can be kind of a destructive force. So I don't think that the expectations are out of whack. Maybe that was overstretched on behalf of the government agencies that did it. But the ICT minister, Mucheru, followed up that news by saying, look, Facebook is not at risk of being shut down, and that this isn't true. So definitely some consensus that needs to be built on the government side. But I think that certainly the concern that Facebook is not a good actor in this space, I think that that's well established.
Do you think that the past indictment by the International Criminal Courts of Uhuru and Ruto is playing a part in how politicians in Kenya are running their campaigns?
So some people say that. I think that the assessment that the ICC and the threat of being dragged there, I think that is overstated. And if we remember, Kenya essentially defeated the ICC, right? And it wasn't just because the public voted in the two key individuals who were indicted by it. The kind of witness tampering and in cases, elimination of witnesses. The ICC was totally unprepared to know how to even forecast, let alone respond to that kind of risk. And so Kenya kind of swallowed up the ICC. It was awkward and nerve-wracking at the time. But I mean, what major case from Africa has the ICC added to its docket after Kenya kind of eviscerated the cases there? I mean, I don't know of any serious case since then. So I don't think it's as much of a force as some people allege.
Okay, we will go to Nigeria, which I know you're an expert in too. But let me ask you about the threat of Islamic fundamentalists attacking from Somalia or from other parts of the Horn of Africa, attacking Kenya. How did Kenya deal with that, and why is it that for a while now it appears as if Kenya is under control, that the situation is under control?
So Kenya, it has made enormous progress in terms of its fight against terrorism from in kind of all levels: mitigation, combating it, information sharing, etc. So the way, if we go from Kenya in 2013, which was when Al-Shabaab launched its first really major attack, that was the Westgate Mall attack, and we go up until present. Yes, Shabaab has had several very successful attacks that resulted in a lot of death, but Kenya has continuously learned from those experiences and is putting that into taking those lessons and putting them into action, of course, with the support of particularly the United States, United Kingdom, and others. So they have improved in terms of genuine intelligence collection capabilities. They have improved in terms of multi-agency cooperation. So you don't have the Directorate for Military Intelligence, the National Intelligence Service, the National Police Service stovepiping information and trying to fight with one another. That, in terms of the terrorism space, is not happening the way it would have, 10 years ago. And so all of this kind of, and I don't mean this in a condescending way, but all of this institutional maturity has taken place, and the level of professionalism in terms of dealing with some of these counterterrorism issues is significant. And I don't know an example across the continent of a country making this level of growth. It's not without issues. Of course, there's questions around human rights and extrajudicial activity. But on balance, if we look at kind of the great effort that Kenya has made in professionalizing these services, I don't think that there's a peer across the continent.
All right, let's segue to Nigeria. You were editor at Sahara for a while, and you know Nigeria very well. Let me play a video for those who are just meeting you of you encountering Dino, our Senator Dino Melaya.
Sorry, Mr. Senator, I want to... Please.
Is there any money left here?
I didn't come here for...
So how much money did you need when you were making withdrawals? Can you explain how
Sir, how do you think that Rolls Royce that you have in your house, that very beautiful?
I stole it from you.
No, I don't. So can you, sir, how do you have all those cars when you were an actor?
To speak to you.
How do you have all those
I'm not
cars
ready
as
to
an
speak to
actor?
you. I'm not ready to speak to you.
As an actor?
I said I'm not ready to speak to
How
you.
do you have all those assets?
Respect my. I said I'm not ready to speak to you.
You're a public official, yet you have all these assets. Can you explain that?
I stole it from your dad.
Can you explain that to us how you have all those assets, sir? Sir, how much was the tattoo you had removed? Sir,
I know.
Those are politics,
What's the difference between accompanying the SaharaReporters and Stella Oduah? And your challenging of Stella Oduah's legitimacy as a leader.
You should be civil, okay?
Yeah.
Wow. So, do you remember those days?
I do. So I remember that. So it's funny with Sahara, people associate me with tormenting Dino, but what people watching the show today probably don't realize is that Rudolph, you started it. you and I remember I didn't even think I knew who Dino was at this point. Not in that video, but when you were holding an interview with him, he was like, just another senator that we hadn't gotten to on the list of people we needed to torment. And you were asking him, I think it was about his Twitter page and why he would send out all these tweets of his cars and opulent house, and he was denying that was there, and you were saying no, we're looking at your Twitter feed, and he got so upset, and at one point he hollered at you, and I think I was out in the other room, at Sahara TV, and all of a sudden we hear this guy yelling at Rudolph, and we became interested. And so that started the fight, actually. And then Dino just is a gift that keeps giving. Once Nigeria is a funny place like this, and SaharaReporters is a funny place like this, where once one thing starts, all of a sudden it's a magnet. And so more people push information. And it just became a really difficult time for Dino. That video that you showed, we were in Lagos, and it would have been before the social media ban bill that was pushed through. But I remember I was with the camera crew from Sahara TV, and I didn't even let them know that I was going to go kind of chase Dino. Which I should have, because I'm like, okay, we're gonna make a plan, and we're gonna go for this guy. I just grabbed the microphone and then beelined it, and so they were actually behind me following, which wasn't good planning on my part. So some of the better questioning that I got, they were struggling to cut through the crowd, and so you only heard it from kind of from a distance. But I remember that it was a lot of fun.
Now that you are in Kenya, when you watch read Nigerian news, what sense do you get? That things are better or things are worse? Or do you feel as if you were still part of a media group covering Nigeria?
Yeah, I think things are certainly worse. I don't know the extent to which the Buhari administration is involved in this wholesale kind of grand corruption that the Jonathan administration was, because when that video was taken, it was Buhari had just kind of started and he had just kind of started building his government. To be sure, there's a lot of corruption in the Buhari administration, but if you remember, the Dizanis of the world, the Dasukis, Buhari, I don't think himself is an enormously corrupt guy. So there's a little bit of positive element there, but I think in terms of Nigeria's institutions, in terms of its overall kind of political environment, the toxicity, the cynicism, the security issues, it's worse. It's worse than
Let's talk about that security issues. That's why I asked you about Kenya and how Kenya dealt with Al-Shabaab, and look at Nigeria, and Boko Haram became bandits and everywhere across the country. What went wrong? What do you think happened in Nigeria?
So I think that Nigeria has never fully understood what Boko Haram is, right? And I think that even the Nigerian public, they're like, oh, they're just Fulanis, or they're just members of Buhari's clan. That's not. I mean, that's not really material. It's not valuable. And the military never knew. The military is a highly insecure institution. for good reasons and a lot of bad reasons. So it was never equipped, financed, or supported to even find solutions, let alone to be able to combat them. There's so many stories from the early days of Boko Haram of Nigerian soldiers being pushed out there without ammunition, and of course they're going to be ineffective. Of course they're going to be afraid. And to a certain extent, the public shouldn't criticize these individual soldiers. It's of course the leaders. It's the Dasukis. It's the various generals. And the SK Usmans, who I'm sure is not around anymore, pretending like the army is valiant and doing great things, on all that little information warfare. So you can't combat something and fix it if you don't know what it is. And over time, Boko Haram has evolved. It doesn't make it less treacherous, but people who have joined Boko Haram, people who have stayed with it, are deeply impoverished, very alienated and marginalized. They're attempting to find purpose in their life through kind of social or economic mobility. And I'm not excusing their behavior, but that's the psychology and the sociology of it. And the government's never, including under Buhari, done a thing meaningful to combat it.
Mm. Now, Nigerians would say that there've been a lot of money spent budget-wise in supporting the military, that there is no excuse now why they shouldn't deal with the bandits of Boko Haram. Don't you think that is accurate assessment?
That they have a lot more money and they should deal with it now?
Yeah, they spent so much money in defense and security in terms of providing them equipment and arms, and still they are not able to deal with that.
Yeah, so I'm sure to a certain extent under the Buhari administration, the money is being somewhat better spent. But if you don't know the enemy you're fighting, if you don't know the causes of this insurgency, you're not going to, if you don't have a concept of operations, you're not going to be successful in executing them. And so they still don't know what it is. There's this lack of capacity and imagination and attention to detail that would be required to actually get to the bottom of this. Now, insurgencies globally are very difficult to be able to manage and redirect or to eliminate. The United States had its adventures in the Middle East for decades, and achieved, by many's estimation, very little, certainly compared to what we put in. Afghanistan's a great example. I mean, when the United States exited Afghanistan, it fell apart, right? We remember those images out of Kabul. So Nigeria is not the only one to flub this, but that's the answer. They lack the imagination to actually be able to combat this problem.
Now, a few weeks ago, we had Gado, editorial cartoonist out of Nairobi, and we asked him about Nnamdi Kanu. If you remember, we interviewed him when you were at Sahara, and he was kidnapped from Kenya and brought to Nigeria. And he talked about the Kenyan media, not asking any questions about that. How did that play out in Kenya? How did it happen? Because we have not gotten the right story of what happened.
How Nnamdi Kanu was detained,
abducted from Kenya and taken to Nigeria.
So this would have been so somehow Nigerian intelligence and the government would have been aware of Nnamdi Kanu's movements, and then they would have communicated with Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Kenya's Director for Military Intelligence and other entities. And through that, they would have said, this person's wanted. You don't want this person here. You don't want this person in your country anyway. And if this person is going to be using your country as a haven to kind of advance propaganda or whatever against us, then we're going to have an issue. So the conversation would have probably been something along those lines. And the Kenyans would have picked him up. They would have found him. The Kenyan intelligence and law enforcement community is very good at identifying people through numbers and then scooping them up, and then they would have extradited him back to Nigeria. That's the modalities of how that would have happened.
Do you think that Nigeria possibly had pressured the Kenyans? Can Kenyans, the government, withstand Nigeria's pressure and say we're not? This is illegal.
So I suspect. So this is wild speculation, but I suspect that the Nigerians wouldn't have tried to put a lot of pressure on Kenya. I think that they would have explained the situation. They would have said that this man is wanted, that he is part of separatism, and you know, our expectation is that you know, you return him to us, because we don't want a situation where he's exploiting Kenya to advance an agenda against the state. I suspect it would probably be something like that. It could have been far more, because obviously I wasn't part of any of those conversations. And Kenyan, you know, the Kenyan government is fairly reasonable on things like this. And who's Nnamdi Kanu to them, really? And then maybe the Kenyans can get a favor out of it, you know, down the line. Kenya, of course, has its own war in Somalia. You've got KDF stationed there. There's a lot of other things that you know, honey goes further than vinegar, and Nigeria is an important country, and I'm sure that there was something like that.
What about the media? Did they try to question the government of Kenya? Why did this happen? Or is this part of a bigger issue, which when I was in Kenya came up, that some Kenyans don't like Nigerians in their country? Is this part of did that play a part in what happened?
So I don't know the extent to which the Kenyan media was asking questions to the government in terms of this. I don't know, but you're right. I think that unfortunately Nigeria has a very bad reputation, and a lot of Kenyans, when they hear that there's this guy with a name that they can't pronounce, who's allegedly some Biafran separatist, the Kenyans would just rather have these people far away from them, and the Nigerians can go do their things. So there's no public sympathy. This I can assure you, no public sympathy in Kenya for Nnamdi Kanu. That I could feel confident on. But what was going on in terms of pressure on the government of Kenya, I don't know.
Now let's get to the elections in Nigeria. You know, this is 2022. The last election and the one before. Some of the names you are hearing today we're also playing a part when you were still at Sahara. So, of course, you know Omoyele Sowore, who is the publisher of SaharaReporters is running. And, of course, you've heard about Tinubu and Atiku. You know, these are familiar names. What do you think about what's going on in Nigeria?
So it's on the one hand astonishing, and on the other hand not surprising at all that it's these same people, right? You know, this whole, I guess in Nigeria we would call it like godfatherism. In Kenya we call it, you know, dynasties or cartels or other things like that. But you know, it's the same people, and they bring nothing new to the table. They are the very people that entrench, you know, kind of corruption and bad practices. You know, and so it's disappointing. I wonder. I mean, I highly suspect the Nigerian public, by and large, is disappointed. I don't remember who said this, but it was back in our days at SaharaReporters. They say that Nigeria is a nation like a hijacked plane. And so all the passengers both hate the hijackers, but are too afraid to do anything in case the whole plane goes down. And so you've got all these leaders who are acting like hijackers, and people just don't know how to kind of, you know, roll that back.
Now, talking about Sowore, where were you when you had that? First of all, that he was arrested in Nigeria, and what do you think about the case against him from the government case against him?
So, you know, he's been arrested so many times. I don't know which time, but I'll go back to like the certain one with DSS when he was detained for a long time. I would have been in Kenya. And, you know, of course, Sowore and I worked really closely together. And, you know, I remember reading the reports, and it felt worse than the typical kind of detention or antics that Shawari kind of got wrapped up in. It felt more severe, and I remember being concerned for him, as a friend, but also concerned for. Shawari has a very specific and important function in Nigerian society, and having him step away or be denied that function is concerning. So I remember I followed it really closely for those reasons, and then when he was released a few years ago, I managed to reach out to him by phone to let him know that I'm glad he was released, and that a lot of us have been thinking about him.
What about when he decided to run for president last election? What was your thinking? Did you talk to him?
No. So look, I didn't talk to him about that. Look, so this is his decision. I on the one hand, right? So I think of him as some of what we were talking about earlier. He's a bit like George Wajakoya, right? Where he's this kind of a third party force, and he's going to be pushing for several certain kind of agenda items that ultimately I kind of agree with. It's very difficult to transform that kind of campaign into something which is going to be holistic, issues based, something that would be more akin to what we'd see in the United States and other kind of democracies. And so yeah, that's what it is. I have a disdain, I think it's fair to say, for the Nigerian political class. I think that there's just a lot of nonsense, and so it's a big decision to take a step into that. When I think that the work of SaharaReporters and basically exposing people for their crimes and their abuses, I think that's a one of a kind thing, and anybody can kind of run for president, but to build a platform that Sahara was, and then have Shawari at the head of that, there's only one platform like that.
Now, how is Shawari different from Bobby Wine or Malema in South Africa? I know you know these people and you know these countries and the politics there.
So there's definitely differences between him and Julius Malema, right? So Julius Malema is in a lot of ways, Julius Malema is part of the political establishment, regardless of kind of what he says, right? So he's not this, if he'll craft himself as an outsider, sure, that's good for showing, but he's not. He's essentially part of this establishment. Bobby Wine and Shawari, on the other hand, they're not part of that establishment. They're coming from unconventional backgrounds, and then are trying to enter politics to stir things up, right? So there's a lot of parallels, I think, between Bobby Wine and Shawari, but the countries of Uganda and Nigeria, I think, there are parallels, but they're highly incompatible. They're not the same.
What do you think about the treatment of Bobby Wine in the last election and what Shawari is going through now? Is it similar or different?
They're very similar, and this is where the similarities between Uganda and Nigeria exist, because this is how the state chooses to deal with these kinds of outside actors, because they don't have avenues to be able to negotiate or pressure the Shawaris and Bobby Wines of the world using the conventional mechanisms that they would if you're a senator or politically connected in one way or another. So how then do the states and these authorities deal with these outsiders who are ultimately disruptive forces? So they've got to use this kind of brutality and this might behind military to deal with them. So that's similar.
Okay, so Abubakar Atiku, the last time you were Sahara, he was a player in Nigerian politics. He's still there running for president. What do you think?
Yeah, it's like, what is I would be really interested to know what the most successful thing he's ever achieved in terms of a governance or infrastructure priority or anything. He's a guy, he's a prominent northern leader. I don't know what he's done. Honestly, I mean, and I try to, look at things on the bright side and whatnot, and understand what the counter argument would be if I were to criticize somebody like Atiku. But I don't know what he's done. He was I think he was the VP for a bit, right?
Yes.
Under Jonathan, and I mean, that was probably to placate people because Jonathan is Igbo, and people felt like there should have been a Hausa Fulani after Yaradua died, and
Okay. My co-host, who is on assignment somewhere, I don't know where he is, but he's joining us. I think he's on the road. Chido, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. You don't know where I must. You sent me on assignment, and you don't know where you sent me.
I don't know where you are now. You move around so much. So,
hi, Declan.
Hi, Chido. Nice to see you.
Good to have you.
So, you have a question, comment, and we've been talking about from Kenya to Nigeria, so you can weigh in.
Yeah, well, good to have you. I mean, your elections are 9 days away. I don't know how much of it you've covered so far, but you can also, last time we had the Kenyan satirist Gato on the show, he was trying to draw some parallels in terms of the candidates in the Kenyan elections and the front runners in the Nigerian election. And then Ndibe was on the show last week, and some of his comments are really generating a lot of interest in terms of the Tinubu as a candidate, and Peter Obi and his and the flaws he has, and what that portends for him and the race in 2023. You've been a keen follower of Nigerian politics. I know we've had conversation around this. What would you say are the highlights of a possible outcome? And things could change in the coming weeks and months, of course. But as things stand today, knowing what you know, is there a way to predict a possible outcome of the 2023 polls in Nigeria?
You said in terms of Nigeria, honestly, I don't know. I think we're a long distance from being able to know what Nigeria will look like, politically speaking. In terms of the presidency, whatever it is though, Cheeto, is going to be really underwhelming. that I'm sure about.
That's interesting.
It's not going to be an administration or a government that Nigerians deserve. But I have no idea what it will shape. Wow. Just because we're so far out. I kind of looked at the APC primaries a little bit, and I just saw the same old names just getting recycled. So I said, I'll wait to get too much in terms of the prognostication.
But looking at the Kenyan situation in terms of the excitement, the third candidates, Wako Jacko or something.
Wajakoya.
In terms of the excitement around young people and their participation, then of course there is the bizarre situation where the current vice president is more like the opposition candidate, and the president is supporting the opposition candidate. And I'm looking at all this, that what could be the possible outcome of the Kenyan polls, and what kind of impact, depending on who wins. Is there a place between now and sometime next year, particularly the elections in Nigeria?
Yeah, look, so I would like there to be a kind of an inspiration in Nigeria from some of Kenya's experience, with some of these kind of third party candidates like Wajakoya. A lot of people say that Wajakoya is a project, right? That he was conceived and is being supported through State House. Now, I'm not totally convinced of that. But that is definitely the allegation, and that allegation has been made by a lot of people. And that's the same kind of talk that we know is discussed in Nigerian politics, being like so and so is just a spoiler. They have a paymaster and they operate on a very specific platitude because of this financing. So when we talk about a Wajakoya or some of these other third party individuals, there's already a lot of parallel, but it would be great. It would be great if enough of the Nigerian public were to be able to kind of reject these old recycled names and support people with a true governance and reform agenda. When Femi Falana was on here a couple months ago, there was talk of this. I thought that was quite interesting. But there's a lot of work that would need to get done in order for there to be a viable third party option.
All right. I think Chido disappeared. Okay.
Yeah, my network is back. Okay, you can go on, Rudolph. Let me know.
All right. Thank you, Chido. We are going to get our viewers involved in the conversation while we let them in. I wanted to know, in Nigeria, there is the role of religion in politics. Is it the same way in Kenya, or is it different for?
So a little bit. It's definitely not as pronounced as in Nigeria. There was this interesting headline this week where the atheists of Kenya endorsed Raila Odinga, and that they appreciated that Raila Odinga said that there's a separation between church and state, and there's no supremacy with regard to Christianity. There's definitely, I think, in terms of practices and kind of national perception, I think that the Muslim communities and other religious communities are devalued in exchange of kind of promoting Christianity. So Odinga spoke to that, which I thought was a good thing. And then I thought it was quite fascinating that the atheist organization of Kenya decided to endorse Odinga. So there's certainly some of that going on in terms of religion and politics. The other thing that's important is churches and mosques as a place to both raise money and then to dispense gifts. So that's something that's used in politics here quite a bit.
Now, about Muslims in Kenya, do they feel left out? What's the percentage? I'm not sure. I remember the percentage of Muslims in Kenya.
So I don't remember the exact percentage, but it's definitely safe to say that there are a large kind of religious minority, and they're kind of throughout the country. Definitely, mostly concentrated on the coast. And then there's going to be a large community in Nairobi, and then really interesting pockets of Muslim communities in Western and parts of Nyanza. And there's a long kind of history there in terms of kind of the spread of Islam. But yeah, look, definitely religious discrimination in the country has lessened and improved over the last 10 years. And this is really kind of due to, I think, just growing religious tolerance in the country and the importance of devolution under Kenya's new constitution. So in 2010, they established a new constitution that devolved powers to counties and allows for Kenyans to have a closer relationship with their representatives at MCAs and county government levels. And so this has been a really important dynamic in terms of empowering Muslim communities and making sure that they have fair access to government services. And so that has been a really important force as well.
All right, let's welcome Olisa Adigwe joining us from Lowell, Massachusetts. Olisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rudolph.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, the Khan. Actually, I've been listening to you, and you speak very well, and you seem to have a grasp of the issues facing Kenya. Given that Kenya is going to the poll in less than 10 days, what do you think is the most important issue driving the electorate when they do go to the poll?
So I think the issue that is going to motivate people the most is going to be how the relationship that they feel with one coalition or the other, and how that's going to improve their own individual and household kind of situation financially in terms of food security and stuff. I think that is what is going to drive the most people. What I wish the issue would be, do you feel confident in the individual that you are supporting or are not supporting, and their kind of their advisors? Do you think that they're going to manage Kenya effectively and in a way which will actually kind of promote livelihood development rather than just kind of handing out gifts? I wish that would be the issue, but I don't think that's how voters are globally, and I don't think that's how the Kenyan public will approach it either.
Okay, Chido, you have question or comment? Okay, Chido is frozen, I think. Chido, can you hear me? Okay, so looking at the media, there've been a series of questions that people ask here on this show about the role of the media in covering elections across Africa, and especially in Nigeria. Is the media in Kenya different from what you know the Nigerian media is? And what role do they play? For instance, I heard when I was in Kenya that the Nation is owned by political family. How are the ownership structure of media houses in Kenya different from those in Nigeria?
So we have fewer media houses in Kenya compared to Nigeria. I think that on balance, the quality of reporting in Kenya is better than what we typically see in Nigeria. The ownership structures are, I think, similar in that there's definitely a political connection between ownership. So the Moi family basically owns the Standard. We've got a lot of influence from Kenyatta family and whatnot with the Daily Nation and Nation Media Group. And then we have some of these smaller publications which kind of struggle. The other thing that's common is the government is the #1 source of revenue for papers through gazetting and advertisements and things like that. So there's influence over the papers in that way. I think that Kenya is just kind of a little bit more orderly, and I think that Kenyans are, because we're a smaller country, we've developed these institutions of accountability and these mechanisms, I should say, these mechanisms of accountability. And so I think that has helped the credibility of media. I'm not saying it's as good as it should be, but if we were to compare the two, I think that's how Kenya has kind of structured itself and why it's working a little bit better.
Okay, thank you. Nick, welcome to the show.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. I have two things to say, and I did believe that, Declan, you actually said the same thing that in this same platform yesterday. I kind of alluded the fact to it. When you said that the invaders with Kenya, in terms of when the outsiders were invading them, that they were able, all the entities, the police, the armies, and all the organizations, they were together. And so they were able to plan very well. That's exactly what we are seeing in Nigeria today with the Boko Haram, and we're busy fighting the Biafras, the Fulanis, and so we're kind of leaving ourselves open to the invaders to come in. So you really nailed it on the head when you said that they did come together and they were able to fight the invaders that were coming in. And I really pray that we Nigerians, that we're going to really come together, be able to trust each organization, we'll be able to trust each other, have a good communication, because when there's no communication, then this organization is doing something else and this is doing something else, then the only thing that you will end up doing is leaving yourself open. And then the invaders will come in and do the havoc that they really plan to do. So I just hope that so many Nigerians or our politicians will listen to this and really hear what you said, because that was what gave the Kenyans the the leverage to at least be able to get ahead and be successful with what they're doing, because there's no way with unity you'll be able to put your heads together. You will dance to the same beating of the drum to succeed in what you're doing. So I think that's what I really wanted to highlight from everything that I was listening that you were saying and you were answering. Is the same thing. You presented it in a different way, but it's the same thing that we Nigerians, we really need to pay attention to, rather than saying Muslims, Christians, Biafrans, Fulanis, the henchmen, the Boko Haram, all this. We keep making all these noise. And meanwhile, the invaders are getting a very good grounds into the country. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Nneka. Declan, hold on. Let me get Ijoma to give you her own comment or question, and then you can answer. Go ahead, Ijoma.
Okay, hi. Thank you for having me. I have a question to Deacon. As a journalist who knows Nigeria very well, my question to you is, you have spoken about the insecurity in Kenya, how it was and how it's been handled. My question is, you say that they handle it in a practicing more professionalism. Do you think, as a journalist who knows Nigeria very well, are they practicing the same way, or are they going to do that? Number one question. My second question to you, I've seen your interview with a Nigerian politician, which was played maybe a few minutes ago. As a journalist who knows Nigerian politicians very well, do you have that feeling that all these interviews coming across them or coverage, does it have any impact on them, or what you guys are publishing? Do they reflect, or do they think like it's a normal business thing or something? Because over here in the West, when such interviews are being held, some of these politicians, they reflect and it goes to the people. And you see, that's why journalist people should, get to these people, talk to them, to hear their views. In this aspect, I'm speaking about Nigeria, not about Kenya. Do you see any impact coming from these people? Thank you.
Thank you, Ijoma. Okay, Declan, go ahead.
Great. So the first question. So look, the Nigerian security services are almost certainly not cooperating anywhere near the level that they would need to in order to have a meaningful impact on the burgeoning security problems in the country. I mean, the country is so much more insecure now than when I was covering it, right, with Sahara. So Boko Haram is still there. It's true that they're not in total control of Maiduguri, but you have these communal clashes from Fulani herdsmen who are coming. You have the increasing politicization of DSS. You have a Biafra, a secessionist and violent movement, which is far worse than when I was covering it. Of course, it's not been the worst in history, but all of these things together, I don't know when it's been as bad as this, kind of on balance in terms of the whole country. Certainly, there was a civil war. So no, the government and institution and security institutions are not aligned, not cooperating, not thinking imaginatively, not thinking in a pro-social way about reaching out to communities and building the right kinds of social ties. They're not empowering their rank and file with adequate training and financial support and materials to execute their missions. None of those things are happening. And the problems continue to deteriorate until there's some kind of intervention. And if the government will fail, then we'll have communities and other levels of thinking, certainly at the state level, to try to resolve this. But you really need a federal, national solution to what the problem set is, and that's just not there. So that's the first part of the question. Second question, in terms of, I'll kind of paraphrase, like, is journalism doing any good? Right. And I think that we need to think more deeply about journalism in Nigeria and about what is helpful, right? So I'll give you an example of what's not helpful and what I think probably makes up the majority of journalistic practice. And that's chasing these kind of big men around, waiting on them, going to their offices or residences and sitting with them and giving them softball questions and having them give you food and envelopes. And there's too much of that that's going on. What I think we need, and where I guess I put the plug for what we were doing at Sahara, was we need to like name and shame. We need to do proper muckraking. We need to identify what that problem set, we need to speak to that problem set, and we need to be able to convey that in a meaningful way to the Nigerian public. That, I think, is where we've had some benefits. And I'll give you a couple examples. So Ekiti Gate, right? That was the first big story that I worked on at Sahara Reporters. We got this audio, that Sagir Kohli had blown the whistle on, and granted, it was after they stole the 2014 Ekiti state election, and we blasted. It was Obani Koro, it was Omoshore, it was Brigadier General Momo, and Jonathan, when Jonathan then put Obani Koro in government, he gave him a little lackluster position, something that he didn't want. Now, he was still in government. There's still impunity there, but he had so much difficulty. They had to postpone his vetting and all this other stuff because of the pressure that was on. And that, in a small way, acts as a deterrent. When I went and interviewed, it was the Minister of Defense, Mansour Dan Ali. He nothing had been done with Brigadier General Momo, and I put him under pressure and said, "So what are you guys going to do with Momo?" And he sacked him basically in the interview. And then the next day, it was announced that Momo was retired. So there's all sorts of things that journalism can do in Nigeria, but it just needs to be a little bit more creative. It's got to really strike those issues and do a lot less chasing. I also recognize, because this is important, and people have mentioned this, I was a foreigner doing this from New York for the most part. When I was a foreigner in Nigeria, I was not going to be murdered. When I chased Dino Malaye around, nobody was going to beat me. And so it's easy for me to say certain things. But that doesn't negate the fact that if we think of journalism in more of that hard-hitting, muckraking way, that is how changes can be made, for sure.
All right. I have one question more, then I have to go. Do you think, Nigeria, the people, do you think more has to be done in educating the voters, particularly in the rural areas? I've seen some advertisement, I call it advertisement, where people say don't sell your vote or whatever it is, But you, with your own experience, and to compare with Kenya, I think Kenya is a little bit more advanced. I don't know much. If I'm wrong, correct me. I mean, here is an opinion. We're here to learn, right? But do you think there's more to do in Nigeria to get these people and to let them, to educate them? Is it the job of the journalists, or is it the job of the politicians? Who is in charge of this to educate the people?
So I would quickly, any responsibility in terms of civic education, I would remove that responsibility from politicians just because they can't be trusted. Now, there's some who are out there, right, who are a little bit better and whatnot, but I would just erase the expectation that politicians would do anything meaningful to bolster a more kind of engaged citizenry. So this will fall more squarely in the path of journalists and reporters. Ideally certain religious leaders, that's going to be better than having any expectation on politicians.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Osa, welcome to the show. Osa, welcome to the show. You have a question for Declan?
Hi everyone. Hi Rudolph.
Yeah, hi.
You look different. From the last time I saw you in London, at the conference, London School of Economics. Remember?
Okay, yeah.
We met here.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
So, do you have a question? Yeah.
I think my question, I think a couple. I don't know how many are in my head now. I want to look at the whole how actually I don't really know much about Kenya and the whole political atmosphere, but I know in the last election there was this rivalry between Kenyatta and Odinga, which was quite bad. There was a lot of riots and everything. And also, Kenya also had this issue of terrorism as well, where there's a mall. I've forgotten the name of the mall now. When there was a bomb and everything, and they had I guess it's the Al-Shabaab problem. But it seems everything is all done and dusted now. It's all been catered for. I'm just wondering how did the Kenyan government get around this? That they have that kind of serious terrorism problem, and they've been able to actually deal with it. It's like it's all completely gone, because in Nigeria, we don't seem to be heading anywhere. It's even coming right into the capital now. It's like everyone is at like nobody knows what's going to happen. So I think it's best, for someone like yourself, who can give that insight and provide that insight as to how it was actually handled. I guess that's my first question, if I'm right. My second question is as regards the role Kenya played when it comes to Nnamdi Kanu. What happened in Nairobi? How he was picked up, tortured, and the Nigerian authorities brought and informed to come to Kenya, and he was repatriated from Kenya to Nigeria. So that means literally the Kenyan government had his dossier or something like that, or they've been informed. I don't know. So I'm just wondering, what role did the press, what role have they played in Kenya? What have they written about it? Have there been an outcry, or have they celebrated it and said, yes, we caught a villain or whatever it is? For Nigeria, we sent him to Nigeria. So I don't know. So I want to know how the press in Kenya, how they perceived it and how they reported it as well. It's very important. So with that, I can actually know how the Kenyans, that will give me and tell me what Kenyans, what they look like or who they are really. I've got that question. Please, if you can start with them two first, that'd be great. Thanks.
But also, I want to let you know that he answered these questions from me, but it's okay. You know, you know what?
As the press.
Yeah, everything. But anyway, I covered everything. But anyway, Declan, go ahead if you want.
Please, I'm really sorry.
I'll summarize the situation with counterterrorism briefly. So there are three key things that Kenya has achieved, which has significantly degraded the capability of Al-Shabaab. So the first thing is they have improved significantly multi-agency cooperation between its various state security agencies, and so there's no stovepiping of information, and there's a greater alignment of goals within each industry's within each vertical's responsibilities. The second thing that they've done is they have significantly improved their intelligence collection capabilities. So they now know more. They're now able to triangulate more information better, and they're able to incorporate various kinds of technologies and methods in order to achieve its kind of intelligence goals, which then feeds into action. And the third thing that they've been able to do is successfully leverage international partnerships, specifically with the United States and the United Kingdom. And so there's a greater alignment of policy goals and of military goals between what the United States' action and multinational action is in Somalia, and how that impacts the security situation in Kenya, and then how to leverage and make these partnerships with these countries work to achieve a kind of a more secure environment in the country. So those are the three things that Kenya has really done excellently over the last 10 years, which is why Shabaab is degraded to the extent that it is. The thing that I'll add is, because it's important, is while all that is really positive, and I really think that there should be a lot of congratulations on the success, there remains a lot of gaps, right? This is not perfect. No security institution in the world is going to be perfect. The United States certainly has gaps as well, and we can talk all day about that. So Shabaab will be successful in another attack at some point. It's just the nature of the world, but they have done a really good job. So that's the first part of your question. The second part is, and I'll just paraphrase, like public outcry about the arrest and repatriation of Nnamdi Kanu by the Kenyan public. as I was telling Rudolph earlier, I don't see any evidence to suggest that there's any kind of public sympathy or awareness about Nnamdi Kanu in Kenya. It's not a priority for the Kenyans. They're not going to know an enormous amount about what's going on in southern Nigeria. They're not going to know who Nnamdi Kanu is. What I suspect happened was Nnamdi Kanu was in Kenya. Nigerian authorities knew this. They liaised with Kenyan authorities, and they said this is somebody who is a problem. He's a secessionist. He's an enemy of the state. And our expectation is that you arrest, detain, and then deport him back to Kenya. And I think that's basically what happened.
So, okay. I mean, how about the press? What did the press say? The Kenyan press.
So the press. I mean, so I don't remember if I read anything in Kenyan media on it because I also follow Nigerian media. So I don't remember if I was getting the breaking news and the details from Kenya's media or other media sources. If I knew, I should have known, Rudolph, that this question was going to keep coming up, and I would have gone back and picked up on, so I could have given a more precise answer. But I can tell you, it's genuinely not a priority. Kenyans don't talk about it; they don't know who he is, and I think it's fair to say, unfortunately, because I have so many friends who are from across Nigeria, but Nigeria has a bad reputation. And so, unfortunately, a lot of people think, if there's fewer troublemakers, the better. Is unfortunately what I think a lot of people think.
Yeah, sorry, Rudolph, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Yeah, based on the you gave three. You actually mentioned three things the Kenyan government or the government in Kenya did, as regards the Al-Shabaab, and you said something about intelligence gathering. And so many things like that. Because I keep saying that, like the issue with the same Boko Haram banditry in Nigeria. I keep wondering, I said, how come we don't have the intelligence to infiltrate these guys? Whereby you kidnap close to 100 people within the Nigerian space for it's going almost 5 or 6 months and nobody knows where they are. To me, I find that really weird. And you move them in the forest, in the bush, from place to place, and nobody sees them. So I'm just wondering, do policemen in Kenya, do they collect bribe? If I may ask, do they collect bribe on the streets? Do they?
Yes. It's very common.
Oh, it's very common.
Yes, it is.
No, because what I'm saying is people will say in Nigeria, okay, there's corruption, it could be bribery, money is being handed out and passed around, and people are ready to shut their mouth or sell their soul for anything, for a bowl of porridge. But you've just confirmed that in Kenya, the security agencies, like the police, collect bribe. There's bribery and they do collect bribe on the streets. So if they do that, I'm just wondering how they're able to surmount that intelligence issue and deal with it, and basically overcome this Al-Shabaab problem. I'm just in my head, just going up. It's something I'm just thinking about, really.
Declan, can I just say something to Mr. Osir? And I know that you actually know better than I do, but I'm just going to say something to him. Maybe then it will help him to wrap his head around what you just said earlier. When you come to a country and 95% of the people in that country are corrupt, how can you measure it with probably in another country where it's probably only 10% that is corrupt? It's not like in any country that you go to, in any organization, you're definitely going to have rotten apples. But how much do you have? Oh. That's what you're going to look at. What is really bothering you right now is that, or what you don't know, is that every organization in Nigeria, every senator in Nigeria is fully corrupt. And so what Declan is trying to say to you is that the Kenyan government are getting better. There's so many people in Kenya that are heading these organizations are standing up to the truth. It doesn't mean that they have eradicated all the corrupt people in Kenya. But we haven't even started in Nigeria. That's the problem. That's why they were able to at least do something. And again, I'll give you one example of what I had that the IG in Kenya did. With all the killings that the Kenyan police were doing towards the citizens in Kenya, then he came up with an idea. He needed to evaluate all the police officers, their mental state. And let's say, for example, that he had 100 police officers. Out of those 100, he only got 10 that were mentally sound. The rest of them, they had a mental problem. So he decided to give them help by them who among you wants to go to therapy so that you get better. But if you don't go to therapy out of the force,
okay,
has Nigeria been able to do that? No.
Neka, thank you. We are totally out of time. This is 90 minutes. But I want Declan to respond to you. But Declan, while you're doing that, can you also talk about this issue? I read reports about British military people operating in Kenya, Americans operating in Kenya. Is that part of why they were successful dealing with Al-Shabaab, and we don't have that kind of arrangement with British and American soldiers in Nigeria?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. And so I don't want to undervalue that there are actual kind of military installations and really kind of training facilities. But it's also important to mention that the Kenyan public is uneasy about foreign troops, even as trainers, having bases, right? So the Manda Bay base out of Lamu, which was attacked a few years ago, other bases. There's a discomfort, right? And I think that's important to mention. So the anxiety that Nigerians might feel from that is shared across the continent. But I think genuinely the embassy and bilateral arrangements that these countries have built with Kenyan institutions has mattered a great deal, and the training, the mentorship, the resourcing, the taking them out, basically helping Kenya build a truly professional class within the security sector. That's been really strong.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry we have to end it here. Declan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Olisa, thank you so much for joining us. Osa, thank you so much for joining us. And then Neka, thank you so much for joining us. So we will see you again this time next week. If you can, like the video so that more people will watch it. And we'll be back on Sunday, every Sunday at 11:30 New York time, 4:30 p.m. Nigerian time. Until next week, see you.
Thank you, Nick.